a TGIF. Happy Friday to you. We're coming to you with a great interview. I have my friend Greg Phillips with us. He is an author. He's doing so many wonderful things. He's the paradigm shifter in the Black community, but not just the Black community, for anyone who wants to walk in a spirit of purpose and excellence. And we're going to talk about a lot of the things that he's doing today, but we have 3 topics we're going to really talk about and address because we have so many we could. One is church hurt. How many people don't go to church for church hurt? The other is detoxing, and that's just not for rehab. There's a lot of things we can detox from, and of course, purpose. So those are the things that we're going to really focus in on today. So Greg, I'm so glad to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
He's coming from his office in his car, which sometimes is the quietest place we can find. And I know how that is. So that's good. So, we talked about being a paradigm shifter, and you're a paradigm shifter for the Black community, but anybody can learn from one of those. But what does that specifically mean? Because you don't just use the word, you have a process and a plan to apply to the word. So explain that a little bit.
That's correct. Well, the first thing it means is that I am shifting from the external to the internal to deal with the Black issues, to deal with our problems in the Black community.
Yeah.
The second thing it means is that I am shifting to Black men, because the chaos that you see in our community is a direct reflection of the chaos that's coming from the Black man's life.
Yeah.
You help the Black man to clean up his life, you begin to help the community clean up its mess.
Yeah.
The third thing is that I literally teach men how to go into the world that you do not see, the spiritual world,
Yeah.
so that they can change themselves and in turn change the world that we walk in, change the world that we move in, that we sleep in, that we do, which is the natural world.
Yeah.
The third thing, or the fourth thing that I do is what it means is that I am literally, again, teaching men. I have a specific plan that I get them to do. One is I get them to read my book, and 2, I take them through a process of a workbook or a workshop that I've created to help them learn how to be reflective on their own lives so that they can tap into that world, tap into their own solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth thing is that from 1916 to about 1970, that time frame is called the Great Black Migration, when Black folks were leaving the South, going to the West, going to the Midwest, going to the East, because we were looking for a better way of living that we could not find in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe we are in another migration, but it has nothing to do with geography. It is a spiritual migration.
Mm-hmm.
It is a time where God is using this time right now. He's calling people, Black people in particular, if you want to change your life, learn how to do it from the inside out.
Yeah.
And so I teach people how to do that.
And I think that's incredible. And we talked about this a little bit before we went live, is people have no idea the good things that are happening. I mean, there's people like you, God is calling up, and people like me. It doesn't matter the race or what denomination. People are calling up people, and good things are happening. Are you seeing that to be true?
Yes. And I'm going to tell you, I believe wherever you see a lot of chaos,
mm-hmm.
and we have a lot of chaos here in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
But if you're able to see through that spiritual eye, you will be able to see God's moving.
Yeah.
In the midst of chaos, while the world is going crazy, while Baton Rouge is going crazy, God is in the midst of bringing peace, bringing calmness, bringing His light into the chaos. And I see that's happening right here in Baton Rouge.
Well, and it's happening in so many cities, and it's almost like, because of social media and the 24-hour barrage of news, people are having to search for what to really believe. What is happening in the news, what is happening in Ukraine. People are really digging, and that is leading a lot of people to the Bible, to spiritual elders and authorities. And I think it's really, really good, because people are looking deeper than what you see on the surface. And So let's go into, and I love the paradigm shifting because, and we're going to get to how you're doing that on a big level here in a minute in the schools and with the men that you mentor. But, you know, I like to say no family is perfect because it's a broken world. I come from a broken family. You come from a broken family. Pretty much everybody does. And almost those same amounts of people have been in a broken church and affected by a broken church. But people take that church hurt and then don't go back to church. So what do you say to people who are letting that limit what could otherwise be a great part of their life?
Man, that's what a great question. What I have found in my own life is that my purpose, the anointing of God, came through the church hurt. This is my, I call, let people know this. I'm on my second tour of duty with God. My first tour of duty started when I was 18, right here in Baton Rouge. From age 18 to about 31, 32, I had a lot of success in my first tour of duty with God. But there were some things that God was trying to teach me, trying to bring me to another level, but I couldn't see it because I was having too much success on the level that I was on. And so I became a missionary in Venezuela, and that's where all hell broke loose. In the first tour of duty, everything I touched seemed like it was turning to gold. God was with me. God was showing me that he was with me. But in 97, while I was on the mission field, things began to change a little bit. God began to deal with me in a different perspective. And so I was working with some teammates who we knew here in Baton Rouge. We all worked at the same congregation in the college ministry. And a few years later, we decided to become missionaries and work together. But it didn't work out the way it worked out when we were on LSU campus working together. We all had the same goal of saving souls, but we had different agendas of getting there. And when I tell you, we literally had a fight. There was two camps. One camp, I was on one side and my teammates were on the other side. And we never did complete or start the work that my family and I was sent there to do, because there was too much infighting. Literally, I mean, that from my perspective, there would have been times when we would have come to physical blows.
Oh, goodness.
Physical blows. We left the mission field after being on the field out of the country for 3 years. We came back in 98, and we had several different things going on. And like I said, God began to transition me into hardship. I began to walk in the wilderness from 1997, and that wilderness walk or visit lasted all the way up until 2018. When my first wife divorced me, we worked on the mission field together. We came back and just a lot of things happened, a lot of devastating things. The last thing that broke the straw with me was when she divorced me. I literally told God, I see how this is going. So I tell you what, you stay on your side of the road, I'll stay on my side of the road, and we shall never cross paths again. But it all started because of church hurt. And I'd lived that way for 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. I was 31, 32, and I didn't come out of that state. I didn't come out of that wilderness until I was 51.
Wow. So you lost. I mean, you didn't lose it the 20 years because, I mean, we talked about, sometimes God has to take you down to the bottom of the mountain before you can really look at where you've got to go to. So he did, pain always has purpose. So that pain of the church hurt, now you can speak to people who have church hurt. We're getting some good comments from friends here. Got one guy watching from Kenya. And anyway, so yeah, it's church hurt is, I mean, you at some point you got to get over that and go back to church, right?
That is correct. But before you do that, you got to address the issue that got you there in the first place.
Amen to that.
And so I had a friend ask me, this was back in 2017. He asked me one day, he said, Greg, when are you going to forgive the church?
Ooh.
And it was a question that allowed me, he put his hands on that knob where all that hurt was.
Yeah.
And when he looked at me and I looked at him, tears just started rolling down my face. And I looked at him and I said, we can change the subject. I'm not going to talk about that. I was not ready, but God was, oh my God. Oh. If I start sharing tears, it's not tears of hurt, but it is tears of joy. It is tears of reflection how God is so loving.
Right.
Because I lived a life of sin in straight up darkness, but God chased me down. He chased me down because he had something for me to do. Wow. And I couldn't do it in that state.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, excuse me. I'm amazed at God, because during that 20-year period, God would always come across in my lane, and he would come in my lane from the perspective people asking me, are you a preacher? Mm-hmm. And my response would be, do I have preacher written across my forehead? Did you not hear the language that was coming out of my mouth? And the first question you ask me, am I a preacher? But that was God's way of showing me that I'm checking on you. Yeah. I'm checking to see where you are.
I'm here. I'm
here. That's correct. That's correct. And several other things happened to show God was checking on me.
Well, that's good. And you're, so the church hurt, what I take away from that is you had it. A lot of people have it. You had to deal with what it was so that you could come out of it. And now you're glad you're back in the church, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It was amazing to me. The things that I do with black men and other men, mainly black men, but I will do it with any man that needs help. Yeah. The main thing God showed me was the thing that he used for me to deal with my hurt, to get over my hurt, is the same thing that I use to help other men get over their hurt. Yeah. Yeah. The same process.
You said your passion comes from your compassion, your hardest moments to walk. You can carry somebody through those same hard moments because you know what it's like.
Yes. Yes. I know what it is to tell God, leave me alone.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
I don't want to hear what you have to say. And what's behind that is, I don't want to hear what you want. You're trying to say to me. I don't want to listen to it because you didn't do what I wanted you to do.
Exactly.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that takes us to detox, because we know that if you're addicted to anything, there's a detoxification process. And there's a lot of people who really are great in that arena and have become specialists in that. But when you talk about the men that you work with, because you work specifically with one-on-one young black men, how do you teach them to detox from their community, detox from wrong thinking, detox from bad friends? I mean, that in and of itself is the start of a real detox. Am I correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Well, the first thing that I do with young men that want to change their lives, I sell them my book. Yeah. And it's for two reasons that I do this. The first reason is, if you want to change your life, you got to have skin in the game.
Yeah, that's why you don't give it to them.
That's correct.
Smart.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. And so I let them know that I don't waste my time. I don't waste my own time, and I'm not going to allow you to waste my time. Yeah. So I give them 2 weeks to read the book.
That's amazing.
Okay. And after they read the book, we get back in contact with each other, and then I take them through my workshop. I created a workbook to go with my workbook. My book is an inspirational thing. It is, when you read that book, you're going to be seeing my life, but it's going to be like a mirror.
It is.
That you're going to be
a better life. Who can't do that?
Yes. And once they realize, wow, I could do this, I'm inspired to do this. Mm-hmm. Then I'll take them through the process of going through my workshop, which consists of 4 things. The first thing is detoxification. The second thing is discovering who you are as an individual. The third thing is discovering what your purpose is. And the fourth thing is making applications from those three things that we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
When the detoxification stage, I have them break their lives down into 10-year intervals.
Yeah.
Starting with the year that they were born up to the current year. And I just asked them a simple question. Where did you receive your first hurt? Where did you receive your first disappointment?
Yeah.
Because what I have found in life is that we are creatures of habits. And so if I have a bad habit in not dealing with my problems, it stemmed from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I created a pattern, and that pattern was unhealthy.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that first step. I want to know the what, the why, the when, the who, the where, and the how. And I want them to put a spotlight on these things. Yeah. And so by doing that, you're dealing with those emotions, because you've talked with people who may be hurting, and when they're using language, they're talking as though this hurt just started today or yesterday or whenever they're talking. Then when you continue to listen to them, it took place years ago. But they're talking in language as though it just happened. Yeah. And what happened is that they have never dealt with that hurt.
Yeah.
They have never dealt with it.
And let me just ask this question, because, you know, I always say the past is present until it's resolved. And in the Christian community, people argue with that, because it's no, just accept Jesus. He heals everything. He does. But sometimes, no, all the time, you have to go back over those hurts and dig up the dirt to plant new things, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And that was God. God did that to me.
Yeah.
After staying, I'm not going to church for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was times you will find me in church, but I wasn't out. My body was there, but my soul and my spirit was not there. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in it.
Yeah.
But what God did with me in June 1st, 2018, it was a Friday. The following Sunday, I was in church.
Yeah. And
in July, God did something on a Sunday. The pastor preached a sermon about Joseph and his three friends. And after the sermon, it was though God was using that sermon, and he and I were just talking. And it was almost God was looking at me and said, now, what are you going to do about your hurt? Yeah. What are you going to do about your church hurt? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get out of church quick enough that day. Yeah. I called the church that my hurt had stemmed from 20 years prior to that. And I called them and set up an appointment with them to go and talk with the elders and leaders the following Sunday. Wow. The following Sunday, I was at their church at 9 o'clock, from 9 to 9:30. And I let them know I'm not here to fellowship, but I was here to free myself through forgiveness. Yeah. And I told them what I was forgiving them for that had taken place 20 years prior in 1998.
Wow.
That's how long I was holding that stuff in my heart.
That is so great.
And God was letting me know, if you want to know what I'm calling you to do, then you got to free yourself from this. Ooh. And God was true to he was true to his promise.
That is
because when I freed myself through forgiveness, yeah. God started giving me revelation of where he wanted me to go and how he wanted me to do it.
Wow. That's amazing. So you had to take action. It wasn't just a prayer, which is a great thing, but God, and I've seen this in my own life. I had to go back and undo some things. So God does give us a plan and a process. You're at the bottom of the mountain. You feel like you're in a valley, but God's trying to take you back up free so that you're free to go pursue your purpose, right?
That is correct. And the reason being is, if you never deal with that hurt, if I had not dealt with that hurt that was in my heart since 1998, the new things that God was giving me, I was going to filter all that God's agenda through that hurt. And then when I'm on the street, I am telling people my agenda and not God's agenda.
Yes.
So God had to help me deal with that hurt, so that I could receive new things and get new revelation and not filter it through mess.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Well, I want to pause on that, because what we think we're impatient as Christians. We're impatient as a culture. It doesn't matter where you are. So we think there's an easy button and we can just pray a prayer and it'll be done. So what about that process of patience? We have to surrender to what God is doing in our heart of hearts. And that's hard for people.
Yes, ma'am, it is. And what I have found in my own life is that God will give you peace.
Yeah.
God will give you comfort, but God will leave you in your mess. And the reason why he leave you in your mess, because he's working a process.
Yeah.
And it is on his time frame.
Yeah.
It's on his time frame and not mine, not ours.
Mm-hmm.
And so that mess that he's left us in, he's using that mess to shape and mold us into what he wants us to be, so that when we start working in our purpose again, we're not working from our agenda, but we're working from his agenda. And we're going to pay a price. Jesus paid a price to give us salvation.
Yeah.
And if we're pattern our lives behind Jesus, well, we're going to pay a price. It's not going to come cheaply. We're going to pay a huge price.
Yeah. Well, and we have to die to ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and that process, and I mean, you look at how painful it was for Jesus. I mean, we're the ones who make that process the long process, kind of like
yes.
you out of church. If we just surrender and say, Lord, have your way, and really, really mean that, it doesn't take as long, because we're not fighting over whose will is going to be done.
That is correct. And God, one thing I've learned also is that God will never usurp your will.
Yeah.
He created us with free will.
Yeah.
And God wants us to serve him with a loving heart. He doesn't want to make us.
Right.
And so we have to choose on a daily basis, as Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane. Yeah. Not my will, but your will. Mm-hmm. We have that same mind. We have to go through that same mindset. Yeah. Not my will, Father, but your will.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And, that's where, sometimes it's, Lord, thank you for my belief, but help my unbelief, because, that unbelief, and there is a demonic force out there trying to distract us. And, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But God has given a plan for that too, because, we can say we can resist the devil and he has to flee, but we have to resist the devil in order to make him flee.
That is correct. And another reason why it's so hard, so imperative that we deal with our hurts, because we have to understand that Satan is very crafty.
Yeah. Satan
will allow us to go to church. As a matter of fact, Satan will raise his hand and go and praise along with you. And it's like events. We look at God as events, and God wants us to learn how to truly live for him. And so what Satan does is he will remind us of that hurt.
Yep.
And so
it's our fault.
That's correct.
Yep.
He will remind us of that hurt to keep us forever feeling as though we're defeated.
Yeah.
And so if we never go back and deal with those past hurts, we give Satan the ammunition that he needs to use against us.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Well, and so let's talk about purpose, because I truly believe that we're all created. God put us here intending on us to live out a power-packed, empowered, purposeful life. And so we have to first believe that God put us here for a purpose and gifted us to live out that purpose. And then we have to submit those days, those calendars, those hours, those minutes to him, so that he can bring about that purpose. It's not our job. It's his job. We just believe him to do it. And, talk about that with the young men and when you go into schools, because you do this every day. How do you convince people? You got a purpose for your life, man. Go live it. I mean,
well, it's interesting that you ask. And one of the things I do, I told you during the detox stage, I have these young men break their lives into 10-year intervals.
Mm-hmm.
Those 10 years intervals is not just to find hurts, but it's also to find out from very young. See, our lives just didn't start when we became adults.
Right.
Our lives started when we were younger, and we left. I call them crumb drops. We left some droplets of what it is God has called us to do.
Yeah.
When I started looking at my own life, I realized, wait a minute. When I was younger, I wanted to do something in the Black community. It started with my own family. It started with me stopping my oldest sister from actually literally killing her daughter when she was a baby. It started in things like, it started when I wanted to make a difference in the neighborhood that I had grown up in. And so those purposes were already there. I just didn't understand them. Right. And so once I dealt with my pain, God was able to have me to reflect on my life by going back when I was a child and just said, okay, now I'm going to connect the dots for you. Yeah. You are working in the Black community because that's what I put in you. Mm-hmm. And you were stumbling over it as you were going along in life, but you were trying to work on things that I had called you to do. Yeah. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And so what we are meant to do in life started way back then. We just don't take the time to reflect on our lives and to see what God has called us to do, and where He wants us to be, how He wants us to do it, where He wants us to do it, because we all have purpose in life.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So part of purpose is going backwards in order to go forwards, and looking at those stepping stones God put together. Ask a child what they want to be when they grow up. They have no qualms telling you 3 or 4 things they have no doubt they're going to be.
That's correct.
An adult, I just want to make it,
That is correct. That is correct. Mm-hmm. And life just comes at us. Mm-hmm. I tell young men, life's going to come at you in 3 different ways. It's going to come at you as a man, it's going to come at you as a father, and it's going to come at you as a husband. Yeah. And you have to understand which area is life coming at you. Mm-hmm. But if you're single, then life is only coming at you as a man. So it's best for you to find out who you are as a man first, where you don't have all these other things, life coming at you as a father and as a husband. You just have it coming at you as a man. So let's figure out who you are as a man. Because if you don't know who you are as a man, you can forget about knowing who you are as a husband and a father.
That's so powerful. That's so true. So to the men, you let's talk about that, because my dad was not present. Let's just say that. And I had lots of daddy wounds. We have a world with people that have daddy wounds. It affects women and men differently, but it affects everyone. So, what do you say to the men to say, go back to where your foundation of a man is, so that you can be that strong man in God and then take that territory back?
It's interesting that you say that. I didn't know who my father was until I was in my 30s. Mm-hmm. But when I was 8 years old, I started to ask questions who my father was. Yeah. And did not get a good answer. I couldn't figure it all out. But in that process, I remember thinking at age 8, I'm 8 years old, but I'm thinking, when I have children, my children will not have to be wondering who their father is. I'm 8 years old thinking this way.
Wow.
So at age 10, God said, I heard your thoughts, so I'm going to give you some practice. My oldest sister had my oldest nephew when I was 10. She was a mother just for a few months and walked out on her own son. And so, but the four other children that my mom had, we had to divide 24 hours by 4. And that's how many hours a day we had to help raise that boy. I'm 54, he's 44 now.
Yeah.
And so I had that process for 8 years, from age 10 to 18. I am learning how to be a father figure, but it was God's way of training me. Yeah. So when I had my own children, I knew I had that foundation of knowing that, when you bring a baby into this world, your life stops. Yeah. It is no longer about you, but it's about the children you have produced in this world.
Yeah.
And so I go and I tell men who have not had fathers, what idea do you have in your mind of what a father is like, what a true father is?
Mm-hmm.
What picture do you have in your mind?
Yeah.
If you have a good picture, let's strive for that picture,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what God did with me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have a hole in my heart I tell my children this all the time, y'all have something your dad will never have. I can't pick up the phone and say, Dad, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
As a hole in my heart, but because as a whole, I filled it with good so that my children will not have to wonder what it is. My children can call me and say, Daddy, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
So that's how I help these young men.
But God is also a father to the fatherless.
Yes.
Had only I known that before I became a teenager and a young woman out in this crazy world, I would have heaped on myself a whole lot less trouble, because I would have sought God to be my father, which that was so foreign to me. But you're
Yeah.
teaching men how to do that.
That is correct. That is correct. That is correct.
Come in and fill that void. And, you know, that's where you come in. Well, we could talk all day. We're not going to do that. We'll have to come back and do this some more. But you are in public schools. You mentor men one-on-one. This is what you do. So if people are looking at you and saying, boy, I'd like to talk more to him, I would like to connect him with a young man in my life, I would like to help his ministry, help him go out. Well, and I'm going to post your contact information on the interview, but what do you want people to know about how to reach you and come alongside what you're doing?
You could call me at area code 225-246-5753.
And I'm going
And
to
I prefer that you text me, because I get so many soliciting phone calls for me to buy this and buy that. And text me, let me know what you want, what needs you have, and I will respond to the text. I will respond to the text. Or you can email me at G as in Gregory, L as in Lionel, P as in Phillips, at GLP, Equipping Black Men Enterprise. I'm sorry, Equipping Black Men at gmail.com. Let me repeat that.
And
That's
I'll put it in the post, so you don't have to, I'll make sure it's clear. But you know what's a good thing to do also is buy some books and just have them on the ready for people. If you see someone who needs a reason to fight for a better life.
That's correct. And you can buy you can get that book from my website. My website is glp.com, glpenterprise.com.
Yeah.
And you can buy that book. I do keep books with me where I'll just mail them to you directly. Yeah. But yes, again, it's $20 I guess it would be about $27 if I have to mail it to you and stuff like that. Yeah. But again, my office is, I'm always at CC's Coffee House on Airline and Bluebonnet. That is my second home. That's where I am now.
I met, and that's a good office to have. Thank God for coffee shops for us entrepreneurs, yes. Right?
Yes, yes.
Well, I love what you're doing. I love how you're doing it. I'm just so fascinated with where you've come from and to where you've come to. And I believe that's the emphasis. It's not what you go through, it's what you get to that God is.
Amen.
And I know you're going to do great things. You're going to continue to do great things. And we'll have to come back. And you know what I would like to do next is have you with one of the men you mentored who has now seen the light, so to speak, together, because I think that will be a great testimony to that. But we'll come back to that. But
sounds good.
Thank you for being with us, Greg. I'm so
appreciative
of my friendship with you now, and us being able to work together. So we'll definitely keep in touch and come back around and do this again. And we've had a lot of good comments. I'm so thankful for the people that watched and commented, and we're going to post in the comments how to reach Greg so you can become part of what he's doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from my heart.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Have a great
day.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.